Are you on the weight loss journey? And are you super focused on your end goal and not much else in between? Today, we're going to take a look at the day-to-day goals that you need to set to help you get to the big end game goal. Let's do this. You are listening to Weight Loss Made Real, and this is episode 233. I'm your host, Master Weight Loss Coach and author, Cookie Rosenblum. Today and every Tuesday, I'm here to be your coach and your guide to help you end that emotional eating and lose that extra weight. If you just found me, welcome. And if you're a regular listener, welcome back. Here is where we work together to end your emotional eating and that habitual overeating, and this is the main focus of all the work I do. This is weight loss for the thinking woman who's smart enough to know what does not work and is willing to dig a little deeper to make lasting change. Here's where coaching meets psychology and psychology meets brain science, and this is where your problem ends. This episode of Weight Loss Made Real is brought to you by the Freedom Group, where real change takes place with me as your coach. The Freedom Group is a monthly membership for smart women like you who want to stop overeating from stress and habit and are ready to make space for more happiness in their life. You can learn more about the Freedom Group at weightlossmadereal.com/group or check out the show notes and get on that wait list. Now, let's dive into our session today. Session number 233 about goals to set along the way to weight loss. Now, focusing on weight loss goals is okay, but we need to look at them differently. You want success, you want permanent success, right? So you need to start from what your goal is and then work backwards to what has to happen every day to help you get to that end goal. We talked about non-scale goals and non-scale victories a little bit in episode 112. So if you like what you're learning with me today in this episode, when you're done, and we'll put the link in the show notes, you might want to go back and re-listen to episode 112. Now, your goal is not to just focus on the beginning and then zooming right to the end where you get exactly what you want, because weight loss is not a linear path. You already know this from past experience. So if you're considering getting yourself to stop expecting that linear, straight path from beginning to end, that is definitely one change to make right now. The day-to-day actions, the little things that you do every day that add up, they are what get you to your end goal. So the day-to-day, also known as the process, is where you need to put your focus. To have the end in mind, of course, and use it to get yourself excited, but then come back to the day-to-day, those little small steps, and use your success with those small steps to get you to stick with it long enough to get to the end. Think about that. When we talk about a goal, you know that it's more than a number, right? Let's look at what could help you move along the path to your big goal, to the number goal, and these are non-scale victories and non-scale goals. Because when you get to the end, it is to some of you, about the number, right? The number on the scale. To many more of you, it is about the freedom from obsessing about the number, but still getting to a comfortable, sustainable, healthy weight. So it's about the number and it's not about the number. But non-scale victories and non-scale goals are ways of measuring what you're working toward on the weight loss journey. We think of weight loss as strictly a numbers game, but it's clearly not. So non-scale goals are when your goals are measured in other ways than the scale. And non-scale victories are ways of measuring your achievements, your progress toward the goals other than the number on the scale. Now, Yes, you want that number. I hear that. And remember that your number isn't a number, it's a range, right? A weight range. But if you only focus on the number or the range, then you're either there or you are not there. And it's hard to keep going and stay motivated when you feel like you're frustrated because you're not there yet. So I want you to look at the big end goal and know why you want this goal. Know why it matters to you. But you also need something other than the scale to tell you how you're doing, because I know that even if you think you're doing well, you want proof. Am I right here? You want evidence that you're doing it and that it's working. So if we don't just look at the end, the number on the scale, and we look for clues along the way, what has to happen? What has to happen along the way are changes, right? Changes in how you eat, how you think, and how you love and take care of yourself. And each time that you're able to make any of these little changes, they act as tiny goals along the way. And when you achieve them, they give you tiny victories. And here's how that looks. I want you to cultivate trust and belief in yourself by focusing on and rewarding yourself for what you do have within your control. And that is the steps you take, the actions you take to get you to your goals. Because remember, you can't control when the number on the scale matches the number that you want. So non-scale goals are goals that you could work on and look at to measure how you're doing without the numbers. So let's look at some ways of setting goals for your eating that are along the path toward what you want. And that means that you're learning or relearning how to eat. We'll start with how you eat. Before you start looking at these goals along the way, remember these few things. Eating according to a diet imposed from the outside, which might be the latest, greatest weight loss plan or what your friend did, it doesn't work long term. You need to stop thinking about good foods versus bad foods and decide that you can look at foods as just more or less helpful. So you need to learn what works for you by paying attention to your body and your needs. So let's look for what you can consider non-scale goals, and we're talking about the category of how you eat. When you learn your natural times to eat, what your hunger rhythm might look like, what those amounts might be, what types of foods work for you, when you figure these things out, each time you do, these are non-scale goals along the way. Because if you keep doing them, you're going to get to the bigger goal. So ask what foods work for you, what satisfies you. Learning these two things are more important goals that you can reach along the way. What foods work for you? What foods satisfy you? Learning these two things are important goals that you can figure out and answer for yourself, and that counts along the way. What kind of food fuels you for a long time, keeps you going strong, agrees with your body, figuring out your food and what foods help you more than others, that is a great goal along the way that leads to those bigger goals that you want. What kind of foods match your overall health needs for yourself? All of these are considerations when you make food choices for long-term weight loss success. And all of these choices are more goals along the way. Do you see what we're doing? We're looking at all the decisions that you make about your food and how you feed yourself. And those are the goals of day to day that I want you to focus on. Making choices like these multiple times a day breaks down that big weight loss goal into little steps. And achieving each of them is a goal along the way to the bigger one. And achieving them is also actually a victory along the way. This works so much more than following someone else's eating plan or the latest celebrity diet or cookbook. It's just much more personal. Now, the most basic key to all of this is the foundation of hunger signals and eating when you're hungry and learning not to eat more than your body needs, not eating when your body isn't signaling hunger. So with practice, on one day, you can say, great, I waited to be hungry for lunch, and then I stopped when my body had enough. I reached my goal for today. So I want you to see how much better it feels to know that you're able to achieve these little small goals along the way and be able to celebrate your small successes so that you keep going. There's more to just the food that you consume and what kind it is and how much. So that's the first part, how you eat. Now, the next part of finding goals along the way to the big goal is learning how to deal with moods and stress without food. Do you know what your personal eating cues or triggers are? Do you know how you feel in any given moment? How aware are you of your emotions? Or do you stuff them down with food? Do you ever step back and think about your thinking? Because all day long, we're all thinking things, and these things lead to all the things that we do. Now, most of our thoughts are repetitive, and a lot come from the past. If you unknowingly keep thinking the same kind of thoughts, you know that you're going to get the same results. So back to our goals and victories, one of the goals that you might want to set along the way to the bigger goal of the number that you want to reach is to become aware of your thoughts and how they make you feel, especially to be able to identify which feeling, which emotion leads to eating as a coping mechanism or just a habitual response. In order to reach your goal and lose the entire struggle with food and your weight, you must learn to look at and understand your moods and your stress and know and have a plan about what to do instead of eating. I want you to realize that all those feelings give you a suggestion to eat, to feel better, but they're not a command. They suggest that since you don't want to feel bad or lonely or frustrated, that you should eat. Distract yourself from the mood. So becoming more aware and in charge of your moods and what they lead you to do is a really important goal along the way. This involves learning why you eat when you're not hungry and relearning how to respond to your moods and stress without turning to food. Imagine if your goal was to learn to be in a negative mood and learn to just deal with it without food. That goal would really help you move along in your journey and eventually get to the end game of whatever weight you were working toward. Imagine if your daily goal was to not feel deprived if you aren't eating when others were eating, or if you're not eating what they're eating because you have a different plan for yourself. This all involves understanding deprivation, which comes from that old diet mentality versus what we're teaching today, which is you choose what to eat and why you're going to eat, so you're never deprived. These are all great goals that you could set for yourself and reach and feel good long before you get to that number on the scale you want. Are you getting it, my friend? These are goals along the way. So far, we're looking at setting action goals for yourself, sitting down, setting goals for how you want to eat on a day-to-day basis. And we've also talked about setting goals for yourself about how to manage that beautiful mind of yours. These are really important in order to keep going and get to that number on the scale, to that goal. And there's a third category of goals I want you to think about on the way to the big one. We've talked about eat goals. We've talked about think goals. And now we're talking about some self-love goals, like learning to find a new best friend so your best friend is not a tray of brownies or a whole pizza. You're not breaking up with your favorite food, but you are setting limits on how much time you spend with them, right? Self-care means setting goals along the way that you can achieve, like learning how to take good care of yourself so you're not delegating food to handle that job. Food is not self-care. So what is self-care? It comes from figuring out what you need and what you want. Figuring out what feels good when you're tired, when you're stressed, when you're angry, when you're sad. It means figuring out how to ask for what you need and, if at all possible, to give yourself what you need. And deciding to stop using food to zone out, to deny whatever your reality is in the moment, to soothe yourself, and basically to stand in for any kind of real love and care. We're not talking about bubble baths and candles and champagne, although those are all very nice. But real life self-care, what could that look like for you on a busy day? How could you prepare for that ahead of time so it's easier? And then consider doing these things, reaching a goal, actually a major victory as you work toward the weight goal. This all counts. So what might this look like? It might look like doing all these things and considering them a piece of the big puzzle. Feeling proud of yourself along the way. Not only looking at that end goal, the number, but accomplishing these kinds of things and feeling great. Seeing good-looking, appealing food and not eating it if you're not hungry. Turning down something you like when you're not hungry and not feeling deprived. It's just not an issue. That is a goal. When you're cooking, it might look like not tasting a whole meal's worth of food and then sitting down to the meal anyway with your family and continuing the eating. Or it might look like having a holiday with family and sticking to your plan and still enjoying yourself. It might look like planning what you're going to eat tomorrow and not being resentful at doing this because this is how you take care of yourself. It might look like coming home in a bad mood and not reaching for the cookies because you're too tired to do anything else. Instead, you recognize that you're tired, you recognize that you're in a bad mood, you know that eating won't fix that, and you give yourself what you really need. All of the things we just talked about are beautiful, small, doable actions that you could take and treat like goals along the way. All big goals have mini goals or little milestones, so think about what yours are. Now, how will you know you've met your goal? If there wasn't a scale with a number to tell you that you're done, you're there, you've made it, it's all these little things that we just talked about that you keep doing until you get to the big goal. You're going to create small habit changes along the way, small goals that add up to little victories that lead you to new habits that will help you reach the big goal, the weight goal, and become an up-leveled version of you. Everything you do adds up. All the mini goals add up to the big goals. It's not just one big hump to get over, but tons of little victories to achieve. You may not be there yet, but you are on your way. Congratulations, my friend. If you're doing any of these things, you're creating victories and reaching goals right now. Okay, my friends, you know what you're going to focus on and do this week. You're going to look for the tiny little steps that you'll consider goals and victories when you do them. Remember that if you're on my email list, you have access to a full-length downloadable copy of my book, Clearing Your Path to Permanent Weight Loss. I wrote this book for you, my thinking woman who knows that there's a better, smarter way to lose weight that is not a list of foods to eat and a list of foods to avoid. You need to learn why you overeat before you could solve the problem of the extra weight, and this book will help you do exactly that. So go to realweightlossrealwomen.com/book or just click on the link in the show notes and you will get a downloadable copy of that book. I hope I see you back here next week, where we're going to continue our work together on your emotional eating and that habitual overeating step by step until they both become something you used to do. We both know that's your goal. So for now, this is your Coach Cookie reminding you that as you search for answers, keep it real, just like you. And I'll see you next week.